This jacket lives up to its name. It has elastic at the end of the sleeves and the bottom of the jacket zips up in the front and just gives you a nice warm hug. It's the Cozy Jacket by Pattern Scout. This is my third time making this jacket. The first time I made it in a flannel and I extended the length by 2 inches, just adding those 2 inches at the length and shorten lines marked on the pattern piece. The second time I made it out of a blue fleece fabric, and today I'm making it out of orange fleece. This sew along today does include a giveaway of a $16 gift card to Pattern Scout, so the winner can choose any pattern from the selection from the Pattern Scout website. If you'd like to enter the giveaway, stay tuned to the end of the video for the rest of the details. For now, let's sew a cozy jacket. Here is one of my pocket pieces. I'm going to start by finishing the slanted edge using my serger, and I'm going to do this for both pockets. Then from the right side of the fabric, fold that slanted edge by 3/4 of an inch. Pin along the top and bottom edges of the slant. Then take it to your sewing machine and sew those edges in place with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Doing this for both pockets. Then you can flip this folded edge to the wrong side and press the top, the side, and the bottom edges of the pocket to the wrong side by 3/8 of an inch. Once we've folded and pressed the bottom, the side, and the top edges of the pocket, turn them to the right side, and we're going to top stitch those slanted edges with a 5/8 inch seam allowance for both pockets. Here is the right side of one of my front bodice pieces, and I've transferred the markings from the pattern piece for the pocket placement just using pins. Now I'll place the wrong side of my pocket on the right side of the bodice, aligning that center front raw edge of the pocket with the center front raw edge of the bodice. And I'll pin in place along the top and bottom and both side edges. And I'll do this for both pockets. Now I'll sew the top and inner edges, edge stitching those pockets in place. And on each side of that slanted opening, I'll backstitch to secure. For the raw inner edges as well as the bottom edge, I'm just going to baste those in place. Place your front and back bodice pieces right sides together and pin the shoulder seams. Sew your shoulder seams with a 5/8 inch seam allowance. Now I'll trim those shoulder seam allowances by about half. And then you can finish those seam allowances together using a zigzag stitch or your serger. Now that those shoulder seams are sewn, we can open the front and back bodice pieces away from each other and start attaching the sleeves. Place your sleeve and the jacket right sides together, matching the notch at the top of the sleeve with your shoulder seam, and also matching the notches that indicate front and back, and pin in place. And do this to pin both sleeves in place. And then sew both sleeves from underarm to underarm with a 5/8 inch seam allowance. Then I'm going to trim those seam allowances by half. And then I'll finish those seam allowances together on both sides. Now I'll place the front and back bodice right sides together, and each sleeve right sides together with itself, and then pin the side seam and the underarm seam. And you can orient those underarm seams toward the bodice. And then repeat for your opposite side seam and underarm seam. Then sew the seams on both sides from the bottom of one sleeve straight across to the bottom of the bodice with a 5/8 inch seam allowance, and then finish those raw edges. and then press those seam allowances toward the back bodice. And then to prepare for hemming the bottom of the jacket, fold that bottom edge to the wrong side by 3/8 of an inch, doing this from the bottom front edge of your jacket straight across to the opposite bottom front edge. Fold your collar piece in half lengthwise and give that a good press. And then open that back out, and we're going to press the long edge that is not notched to the wrong side by 1/2 of an inch straight across. Now with that collar piece opened out flat, place the notched edge of the collar right sides together with your neckline. Pin in place matching the center back notches and the raw front edges. Then we can sew the collar to the neckline with a 5/8 inch seam allowance. Then I'll trim that collar seam allowance by about half. And then I'll open out that collar and press that seam up toward the collar. Before I start applying the zipper to the center front, I'm going to take a 1/2 inch wide strip of interfacing and fuse it to the wrong side of the center front edges of the bodice, as well as those top edges of the collar, from top to bottom, and doing this for both raw center front edges. I'll be attaching a contrasting plastic zipper, and I've gone ahead and trimmed at the top of the zipper so that it fits from the notch at the bottom of the bodice to the notch at the center of the collar. And to create a new zipper stop, I used a needle and thread to sew many times at the very top to create a blockage, doing this for both sides of the top zipper tape. Now I'll place the right zipper tape right sides together with the right front bodice piece. And I'll pin in place from notch to notch. Now I'll separate the zipper so that it's easier to sew in place. And I'll use my zipper foot to sew this zipper in place, sewing about 1/8 of an inch away from the teeth. Now that this one side of the zipper tape is attached, we're going to take the top collar piece and fold it in half along the memory crease we pressed earlier, so that the collar is right sides together with itself. Make sure that that edge is still pressed under, and pin in place. And we'll do the same along the bottom edge, folding up the hem right sides together along the notch where the bottom of your zipper is placed. And maintain that 3/8 of an inch upper fold, and pin in place. Then we can sew these edges in place still using your zipper foot, maintaining that same 1/8 of an inch distance from the teeth that we used to sew the zipper in place. Now that those bottom sections are sewn, I'm going to trim those edges and then turn the top and bottom sections right side out. I'll also turn that zipper tape to the inside of the garment and pin in place from top to bottom. I'm going to sew from the top and about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge of my zipper tape. Now that my center front and the zipper tape are top stitched down, I'm going to reattach the opposite side of the zipper. And now I'll place that loose end of the zipper tape right sides together with the opposite center front. With both sides of the zipper tape attached, you can make sure to align your pocket seams and your collar seams. And pin that zipper tape in place. Now I can separate my zipper tapes once again, and I'll repeat all of the previous steps to finish this side of the zipper, as well as the collar, the bottom hem, and the top stitching. Now that the zipper is fully installed, we can finish our collar. I'm going to take the folded inner edge of the collar and place it over the seam so that the fold just covers the stitching line. And I'm also going to be adding a garment label. This is a Thanks I Made It garment label from Sarah Hartz. I'll center it in place at the back neckline And then I'm going to hand baste this folded edge in place over the seam. Now that my collar is basted in place, I'll take it to the sewing machine, and working from the right side of the fabric, I'll stitch in the ditch of the original seam line from one side of the zipper teeth straight across to the other side. And now that that collar is sewn, I'll remove the basting stitches. Now we're going to finish the bottom hem in the same way. With the bottom raw edge still tucked under by 3/8 of an inch, we're going to fold up the hem to the wrong side by 2 1/4 inches. I'm going to pin that edge in place, pinning from the right side of the fabric. Making sure your pinning sets yourself up for a nice even stitch, especially as we're going to be stitching along the bottom of our pocket edges. Now that I have my hem pinned in place, I'm going to sew from one center front straight across to the other, sewing along my basting stitches that I sewed along the bottom of the pocket earlier, and then continuing straight across with that same seam allowance. I'm going to start my stitching 3 inches away from the center front and end my stitching 3 inches away from the center front on the opposite side. Now that we've hemmed and created that casing, I'll attach a safety pin to one short end of my 2-inch wide elastic, which you'll find the length measurements for your size in the pattern instructions. Lace it through from one side to the other through the opening you left in your stitching. Now you can pin both sides of the elastic in place and try the jacket on to see if you like the fit of the elastic, and then you can adjust as necessary. Once you're happy with the fit, place both ends of the elastic inside the casing and pin that elastic in place inside. Doing this on both sides. Now I'll take it back to the sewing machine and sew a vertical line 3 inches from the zipper tape, which is where our stitching started and stopped for the casing. Sew from the top of your hem stitching to the bottom of the jacket, back stitching at both sides to secure. Do this on both sides of your bottom hem. And then you can top stitch along those folded edges to close the openings that you left in your stitching, just following the original stitching line. Now to create the hems for the bottoms of both sleeves, I'm choosing to finish the raw edges all the way around with my serger. Now that those raw edges are finished, I'll fold the hem to the wrong side of the garment by 2 1/4 inches and pin in place. And then sew all the way around, edge stitching close to your finishing stitches, once again leaving a gap of about 2 inches to insert the elastic. Then draw the 2-inch wide sleeve elastic through the opening that you left in your stitching. Then overlap both ends of the elastic by about 1/2 of an inch and stitch back and forth to secure. Then pull your elastic entirely into the casing and top stitch that opening closed following the original stitching line. And now your jacket is complete. Thank you for watching this sew along. If you'd like to enter the giveaway for the $16 digital gift card to Pattern Scout, all you have to do is check out the Pattern Scout website and let me know what your favorite pattern is. This helps me plan future sew alongs. The giveaway will run from today, Thursday, January 25th, 2024 at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And the giveaway will close next Thursday, February 1st, 2024, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The winner of the giveaway will be announced in the description box below, as well as in a So Happy YouTube community post. This giveaway is not sponsored by YouTube, and So Happy is solely responsible for choosing the winner and giving out the gift card. I hope you enter, and I'll see you in the next video.